I don't know who needs to hear this, but your lock count does not define your lock journey. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Alexandra. On today's video, we are going to be talking about this quote-unquote obsession with lock count. Does it really matter, and how does it actually impact your lock journey, right? So before I started my locks, I knew that I was going to get asked the question, how many locks do you have? And the reason I knew that I was going to get asked this question is because I myself would comment on other creators who were documenting their lock journey, who had a desired size of locks that I aspired to have. I would always comment and ask them how many locks did they have. So for me, I knew it was going to happen when I started documenting my lock journey. So early on, I went ahead and counted my locks. And whenever people ask me how many locks do I have, I always answer the question. And if you are new here, I currently have 85 locks. I started off with like 76, 77. And then 2 weeks after the loctician installed my 2-strand twist, we actually went in and kind of split some of the twists in the back, and I had 92 locks. I had 92 locks for like the first 2 years of my lock journey, and then last summer I actually combined a few because they were started off a bit smaller in size, and I just didn't like how they were looking in comparison to like the rest of my locks. I wanted them to be a bit thicker, so I went ahead and combined a few. So now I have 85 locks. That was a mouthful, but I still have that to say, I have no problem answering the question of, Kat, how many locks do you have? Now, I will say this, as somebody who actually is within my lock journey, I understand the curiosity of why people ask that question, right? Like if you're starting your lock journey and you see somebody out there who, from what you can visualize from watching their content off of the internet, they look like they have a similar hair type and texture as yours, right? Maybe even a similar length, and the size of their locks is something that you aspire to have. So you want to know, okay, how many locks do you have, just to kind of get your framework and your mindset like prepared to think like, okay, I can anticipate probably having about 100 locks. I can anticipate having maybe about 70 something locks. I can anticipate having 150 locks. But as somebody who actually is in their lock journey and has been in it for almost 4 years now, I will say lock count does not matter as much, nowhere near as much as you think. And the reason being is that everybody's hair density varies, right? Even your head shape, and like how big or small your head is, and like the way that your locks are going to be parted, all of that stuff plays such a big factor as to how many locks you'll ultimately end up. And when going into starting your lock journey, you actually just want to focus more so on the desired size that you want your locks to mature into, more than you ever want to focus on the number of locks. And I want to say this, yes, I know for myself, like I was very mindful of the fact that like I did not want to go in and have like over 300 locks in my head, right? Like having over 300 locks in my head pretty much would be getting like micro sister locks. And I knew that was something that I did not want. I really wanted to have like medium sized locks. That's just me knowing like my hair density and, you know, the thickness of the strands of my hair, X, Y, and Z, and kind of just educating myself on that beforehand. I want to say this too, before I started my lock journey, I used to do 2-strand twists on my loose natural hair as a protective style, as a low manipulation style. That was something that I had done for quite a number of years. So a lot of times when I would install those twists in my head, I also would count them, because I knew that, number one, 2-strand twist was going to be the way that I was going to start my locks anyway. So counting them also gave me, making the twist the size that I knew that I wanted my locks to be down the line, and then counting it as well also gave me an idea of what I can anticipate. And honestly, when I used to do the 2-strand twist on my natural hair before I started my locks, the count usually would come out to anywhere between like the high 80s and like the mid 90s, like anywhere between like 88 and like 95, 96. So I kind of always knew that like I was going to end up with less than 100 locks. Like I always knew that, right? But I just want to say this, that you don't want to become so obsessed on the lock count of other people that you see. Now, yes, you want to be mindful in terms of the size of the locks that you want, because the size of the locks is going to let you know so many different things. The size of the locks is going to let you know what maintenance method you are going to be using to upkeep your locks. And then also it's kind of going to give you an idea of how long it's going to take for you to maintain that desired maintenance method. So for example, sister locks, micro locks, right? Those are very, very, very small locks. And if you are not familiar, the usual maintenance method that is used on those style of locks is interlocking. Interlocking is a method where you take the end of a lock and you feed it through the roots, usually in a 4-point rotation. So you go north, south, east, west, up, down, left, right. And with sister locks, micro locks, we already know that that is going to be like hundreds of locks. Like it could be anywhere between like 300 sister locks. I've seen people have like up to 700, right? That is going to take hours. And if you haven't done your research, I mean, I've literally seen it take women 12 hours to do that maintenance on their locks, right? So be mindful of that when going into starting your lock journey. Like not only what is the size that you want, but then how long is it actually going to take for me to do whatever maintenance method that I'm going to do on these locks. I also want to preface this too, right? You can have two people standing right next to each other and they could have the exact same number of locks and it will look totally different, okay? If somebody has extremely fine hair and you have them standing next to somebody who has very thick hair and they both have sister locks, the person with the fine hair can have about 250 sister locks and the person with the thick hair can have over 700 sister locks, right? This literally just plays a factor as to the density of the hair and then also the thickness of the strands. And they could even still have a very similar hair type. They could both have 4C hair, but it all comes down to that density, that thickness of those strands. Depending on the size of somebody's head is going to determine also the way that those hairs are going to be parted, and then also it will ultimately play a factor as to how many locks they actually do end up with. Now I can say for myself, even though before I started my lock journey, yes, I definitely was guilty of asking, you know, other people who I could see who had a very similar hair texture in terms of it being a 4B, 4C type of hair type. I definitely would ask those questions, but also I knew that what I would ultimately end up with was not going to be a definitive number of what I saw. So I never went into my lock appointment saying like, hey, I want you to give me 85 locks in particular, right? Because I knew that having that rigid type of number was ultimately going to play a factor as to how the size of my locks would be, but even maybe so how my hair is being parted, right? Like, you know, that for example, like the nape of my area, right? Like I can only get like 4 locks back here, but for some people you could have a row of like 10, you know. It all just plays a factor as to, again, hair density, the thickness of those strands, even the size of your head, okay? Also want to consider too, not just like the size of your desired locks, but also what is your desired fullness, for example. So if you see, you know, certain people out there who have like very thick locks and then you learn that their lock count is about 50 locks, that fullness can very much vary once again based on the density of somebody's hair. I have seen people who have less locks than I do and their locks look fuller than mine, even though they may have 4B, 4C hair just like me. So once again, it all comes down to what is your desired end goal when it comes to your locks, and I cannot stress that enough. And this is why when it comes to the lock journey, people always say don't compare yourself to the next person. You really just want to focus on, okay, what is going to work best for me and my lifestyle? Focus on the health of your locks, the desired thickness of your locks, and ultimately the desired maintenance method that you feel like you can sustain long term. Let me know in the comments below, what is your lock count and what size locks do you have? Do you have sister locks, micro locks? Do you have medium sized locks like I do? Do you have really, really thick, large locks? Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.